Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. Welcome back. Today's video is sponsored by Trade, a company that is dedicated to transforming coffee drinkers into coffee lovers. They have this great little nifty questionnaire that you fill out to connect you with a coffee that suits your taste. I think it's a brilliant idea. If you're one of the first 100 people to click the link down below and use the coupon code Emmy, you'll receive 50% off your first purchase. Big thanks to Trade for sponsoring this video, and today I'm going to be making Hokkaido milk bread. Now, I had never heard of this bread before. It was brought to my attention by Renee. Thanks so much, Renee, for leaving me a message on Facebook about this bread. And when I researched it, I was familiar with the technique, but I've never tried this technique before, and it's a very interesting one. It's called Tangzhong. I'm not sure if that pronunciation is correct, actually, and it actually sounds like a Chinese word, but I believe it's used in many Asian baking recipes. And basically what you're doing is you're making a hot water roux. What is a roux? Roux is basically a thickener. Usually it's made with some kind of fat with flour. And it's cooked into a paste and it thickens sauces, thickens gravies. But in this case, we're going to be using water. It hydrates the bread. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means there's more water in the dough. And why does that make a better bread? Well, when the bread is baking, it creates more steam, which creates more air bubbles, which makes a fluffier, taller loaf. And it makes a bread that lasts longer or stays fresher longer. It doesn't taste as stale because you've got more moisture content in your bread. So the first thing we need to do is to make the Tangzhong. So in a small saucepan, we're going to take 3 tablespoons of water, 3 tablespoons of milk, 2 tablespoons of bread flour. Before we add any heat, we're going to whisk this together. So we're going to heat this up on medium-low heat until it thickens up like a nice paste. And it says when you can see the whisk marks at the bottom, it should be ready. So the recipe I'm going to be using today is adapted from King Arthur Flour's recipe for Hokkaido milk bread. I will put the link down below to the original recipe. So in the original recipe, it says to allow the Tangzhong to cool to room temperature. I found a YouTube video by Helen Rennie, who also used the King Arthur Flour recipe. She says to go ahead and add the milk at this stage, which will cool the Tangzhong down, which I thought was brilliant. And then we're also going to add our egg at this step as well. 1 large egg. All right, now we're ready to make the rest of the dough. So I'm going to fit my stand mixer with the hook attachment because we're going to need this. So put that on. We're adding 2½ cups of bread flour. Now bread flour contains more gluten, 1/4 cup of sugar, teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of yeast. So I'm going to give that a little bit of a stir. Now I'm going to add our milk and egg mixture. And 1/4 cup of melted butter. Whenever you're working with a stand mixer, it's always a good idea to pause in between and scrape down the sides. So here's the dough after about 8 minutes of kneading. It's no longer sticking to the sides. It's become this massive dough. I'm just going to give it a few kneads with my hand, just a couple turns, kind of form it into a ball. So what are we doing with all of this kneading? Well, what we're doing is we're forming chains of protein. So the gluten forms and bonds together. When air bubbles form in the oven and from the yeast, the gluten stretches and captures that CO2 or carbon dioxide, which gives us those pockets and the pores inside of the bread, which is the crumb of the bread. So if we don't develop that, then we don't get this nice big rise. Just put a couple drops of oil in just the same bowl that we mixed it in. Roll the top of the dough in there. We don't want it to dry out. Place it in the bowl. And we're going to let this rest for about 1 hour to 1.5 hours until the dough puffs up. It says specifically in the recipe it may not double, but you definitely want it to sit long enough. So while the dough is proofing, let me tell you a little bit more about Trade. So Trade has this really nifty 6-question questionnaire that takes your personal coffee taste and matches it with over 400 different coffee varieties, roasted by 50 of the best roasters in the US. You just answer the 6 questions and there you go. They choose coffees for you based on your personal taste. I love that. It makes choosing a coffee really simple, and I will probably like it because it's based on the things that I said I like, right? So another thing I like about Trade is the freshness. The beans are roasted to order. So once you place your order, your beans are roasted. So one of the coffees that were selected for me was PT's Coffee, and this is called Ad Astra, and it's from South America. One of my favorite things about coffee is the actual ritual of the making, the smell of the beans, the grinding of the beans, the pour, and of course, the consumption. Oh, no. So generally I drink my coffee black, and when I answered the questions, that was one of the questions. How do you drink your coffee? And this coffee is so smooth, but it does not give up anything in terms of flavor. Not overly acidic. I like a little bit of tang in my coffee, but not too much. So be one of the first 100 people to click the link down below, enter the code Emmy, and you will receive 50% off your first purchase. Okay, let's get on with the bread making. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes since I placed my dough in this bowl here, and this is what it looks like. And one way to test to see if it's ready is if you poke the dough and it doesn't spring back. That means it has proofed enough. So take the dough out. Such a luscious dough. So we're gonna flatten it here, and we're gonna portion it out into 4 equal portions. 176, so I should have 2 pieces that are 176. Take the balls and kind of roll them under like this to form a ball, and then use my hands to kind of shape it into a sphere. Like that. Okay, 4 balls. Keep them covered, and take one of these balls, and I'm gonna just flatten it out, roll it a bit, fold it over like an envelope, 1, 2, rotate, then roll it out lengthwise, and then just roll it up. Pinch it together, and place it into your buttered pan with your 4 other rolls. Cover this and allow this to rise for about 50 minutes until it's nice and poofed before we bake it. At this point, you also can retard this, meaning you can delay the baking process by placing this in the refrigerator, and then when you're ready to bake it, take it out, let it come to room temperature, and then place it in the oven. That way you have a little bit more room in terms of your baking schedule. Okay, see you in a little bit. So after you're finished shaping your loaf, you're gonna let it sit for about 40 minutes or 50 minutes until it proofs again. And then we're gonna take 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of water, beat that together, and just very gently brush the top of the dough with your egg wash. Then place it into a preheated 350-degree oven for 25 to 32 minutes. Also, if you notice that the top of the bread is getting dark very, very quickly, you can lay a piece of aluminum foil on top to kind of keep it from getting over browned. Then you're gonna let it rest for 10 minutes before taking it out of the pan. Here we are, here's my beautiful loaf of bread. It turned out beautifully. So while my bread turned out beautifully, I noticed that I have a few bubbles here. Not exactly sure what happened here, but maybe some of the yeast did not get incorporated properly or didn't get hydrated, and so I'm getting little pockets of carbon dioxide. I don't know, professional bakers chime in, let me know. Let's go ahead and pull this bread apart. All right, here we go. That looks absolutely beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This actually reminds me, in terms of the color, in terms of the type of crumb, of baos that you can get in Chinatown. I love baked baos. I love them filled with chashu. I love them filled with coconut cream. Maybe I should do a bao recipe. Let me know in the comments if you want to see. So you can see a little bit of a swirl here from when I rolled it. Now let's just pull this apart and see how it tears apart. Yes, it tears apart beautifully. All right, Hokkaido milk bread. Itadakimasu. So delicious. And it tastes just like baos. freshly baked, warm, a touch of sweetness, enriched, so it has that buttery flavor, and there's an egg in there that just makes the crumb ever so soft and chewy. Because we used bread flour, the bread is chewier than regular all-purpose flour. So stinking good. And if I were to think of some bread analogies, it's actually quite similar to Hawaiian bread or Portuguese bread. So there you have it, Hokkaido milk bread that you can make at home. Big thanks to lovely Renee for introducing me to this bread. I had never even heard of it as of yesterday. So once I saw it, I knew I had to make it. So now you can do it at home. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and absolutely delicious. Big thanks to Trade for sponsoring this video. Be one of the first 100 people to click the link down below and enter Emmy to receive 50% off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media. Subscribe, like, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! Brad.